okay. And then, you write, I got a hold of Robin McConnell. And he says, hi, Matt, thanks for this. I was not aware of any of these had been posted. I would very much appreciate seeing a copy of Out of the Depths.
I took care of sending that to him. I forgot to make a note of that.
Okay, all right. I was going to suggest on the Out of the Depths thing, I don't think I want to pay for Sean Robinson to remaster all of Out of the Depths, although I'm sure you do a remarkable job. But boy, it would be a real challenge to get the washed out copy that I'm very grateful for that Margaret Liss found for the Cerebus archive. Just see what Sean Robinson could do in terms of restoring the cover of Out of the Depths and provide that to Robin so that he's got that for his book. He goes on, my book is a survey of Canadian work published from the late 1960s to about 1982. Agreeing with Dave that Colin Upton did mini comics, which was a different time, and comics movement. I think there's overlap there, which is one of the problems. I think, Robin, you're trying to make distinct silos that aren't distinct silos. They bleed over into each other. He also, I agree with Dave on his definition of traditional underground comics. While I'm using the term underground on this project, it is much wider than the standard definition of head shop available work like Grant Holmes, Brent Boats, and Fog City Comics, all three Canadian. I am using underground war as an umbrella term right now, with more distinction of the different types of work to be provided in accompanying writings. I've been in touch with Rand's widow in the process of the book. I've also been in touch with Dave Geary directly, who Dave mentions in his first video. I am interested in Canadian works that are creators trying to tell their own stories, work that is likely less stuck, caught in genre and more. This could include the wider range of independent comics published during that time. I do consider comics like Fantasia, Orb, or Andromeda to be more as what Dave says, ground level. I am really looking to understand more of the Canadian small press and independent comics published during my time period of focus. I hope this helps contextualize. Again, I don't think the boundaries are as sharp as you're trying to make it, but I can certainly respect you taking the pains to do that. He writes, there is a lot that I know and have been able to track down some interesting work and people, but the Ontario small press scene of the 1970s is still a bit of a mystery to me. As Dave mentioned, John Bell's book is quite limited. There have been more work that I've been turning up that there is very little amount about online. And then mentions I have attached some comic covers that you can share with Dave of some recent comics I've dug up. Hieroglyphics was actually published out of Toronto in 1970. And then Matt says,
I previously faxed these, and since this is pretty long, I'm going to skip them unless the office ate them, in which case, let me know. Back to Robin.
There you are. And here are some more formal questions for Dave below. And looking at the covers that he faxed, yes, I think what I would describe those, and I think what anybody in the 1970s would describe those as being, is comic zines. They're comics, but they're fanzines, and it's just somebody decided to do their comic fanzine. So we're going to again switch to the recording that I did earlier, because I think Robin was talking about doing podcasts with this at some point. So this will be me answering to the best of my ability. Tell me about the cartooning scene when you were first starting out before you published Cerebus. Who were some folks that you were corresponding with within Canada that made comics that you found exciting? And number two, what can Dave share about his friendship with Gene Day and his importance as a cartoonist? So here we go with my best attempt at answering questions number one and number two this time around.
Again, Robin, it sounds like a very interesting project that you're working on, and I'm certainly looking forward to having a copy of it in the Cerebus archive when it's done. I think what's happening is you're looking at intersecting realities that weren't at the time what it is that you're thinking of them from where we are. I know all of you younger generations get really tired of the baby boomers saying it was a different time period, but it was a different time period. Let me address your question. Tell me about the cartooning scene when you were first starting out before you published Cerebus. Who were some folks that you were corresponding with within Canada that made comics that you found exciting? See, when you're talking about that, at the time, there was really just you were either a fan or a pro, and we all wanted to become pros, and wanted to stop being fans. I definitely did. And the way that you did that was by breaking in at Marvel or DC. Some people, like John Byrne, broke in at Charlton as an example, and learned a lot there until he got to the point where somebody at Marvel would say, okay, I think you're ready. It's, the same as, you play AAA ball as good as you can, and then, go to AA ball, and then eventually you go to the show. You're going to the big leagues. And that's in a nutshell what it was like. The images that I got Rolly to scan is me trying to tilt the discussion back in the direction of, okay, here's what it was actually like at the time, from my perspective, and what I gathered was the perspective of other wannabe cartoonists, wannabe professionals, and I used to talk to Gene Day. This is going to tie into your second question, asking about Gene Day. I used to talk to Gene Day about it's like a series of bottlenecks where everybody has different problems, everybody has different impediments, everybody has different personality quirks that take them out of the game. So that, you start with a field of 50 or 75 guys who all go, yeah, I want to be, a professional comics creator. I want to do Spider-Man. I want to do Batman. And then, okay, this bunch gets eliminated for this reason, and now we're down to 20 of them. And These people, it's even more fine tuned than that, and then we're down to like 10 of them. Um, but in terms of at the time, I wasn't corresponding with anybody. We didn't. We did, I'm sure that there were people who corresponded at the time with creators corresponding with creators, but that was usually one creator and another creator. It was not. That was part of the cohort that got bottlenecked out of the game. It's like if you would rather sit and write letters to people about comics, which the present day analogy would be the people spend all of their time on comics chat rooms instead of sitting and writing and drawing comics. How do you think that's going to turn out? Um, so I wasn't corresponding with anybody. I was looking at, um, okay, I want to be a professional comic book artist. And here's the guys that I see in Southern Ontario who are also in that category. They would like to be professional comic artists. So some of the guys that you're looking at here, Vince Marchesano and Art Cooper were in Hamilton, and they were doing mini comics, mostly mini comics, but definitely superhero genre stuff. They published Vince published Spectrum. Id Ego Eon was another one. Pen and Ink was another one. So if you Google search Spectrum Publications Hamilton or Vince Marchesano, Marchesano, or Art Cooper, Cooper. They were pretty prolific, and they were prolific for a number of years. And Art Cooper was definitely flashier than Vince Marchesano was. Vince was probably more technically accurate, but in terms of the 16-year-old, 17-year-old Dave Sim looking at Spectrum Publications, I'd go, no, there's problems with this where I don't think that I have these problems. And it's like, well, you don't have all of the same problems that Vince and Art do, but you got a number of the same problems, which is you think you're better than you are, and particularly from 50 years later, looking back, going, yeah, kid, you stink on ice. It's your heart's in the right place, and you really, really want to do this, but you're not looking closely enough at what the actual professionals are doing. It's I want to draw like Neil Adams, so I'll just put all of this cross-hatching on the cheeks and, hey, look, Ma, I'm Neil Adams. It's like, well, it's not just cross-hatching, it's contours. You're following the contour of the cheek, or you're supposed to be. Yours just looks like, somebody took a razor to the guy's face and slashed him up pretty good. So that was another of the bottlenecks that when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize that you're in a bottleneck. You don't realize that okay, this is what you're not getting. That you're not looking closely enough at what you're doing, and you're not solving your own problems. You're not figuring out how to do anatomy better. You're just going, I want to be Neil Adams so I can go to comic book conventions and be famous and sign autographs and do sketches. Well, it's not quite that easy. These are bottlenecks. So what you're looking at is pages from Orb magazine, which was there was like 6 issues, and one of the significant ones is the story by John Allison, Half-Life. I haven't got it right here. Rolly's out back scanning it. I think it's called Half-Life, and it's a science fiction story. And I was at a comic convention in Toronto, and John Allison was there. Um, this story had appeared in Orb magazine number 3, um, and was obviously, one of the showpiece things. John Allison had his own problems in terms of inking. He was a little too fine with the inking, and you didn't. If you got way up close, John Allison looked amazing, and but if you stood back 2 feet, it's just not pulling together. But his composition was great, and his storytelling was great, particularly on this story. And he had the originals at this Toronto con, and I happened to be there when he was showing them to Roy Thomas, who was editor at Marvel at the time. And Roy Thomas is looking at the story. I recognized it from Orb, and he's going through the pages and talking about different things, saying this is good. I like this part. And it's like my heart was pounding. I'm going like, I'm standing right here, and John Allison is going to make it. He's going to make it. He's going to get in at Marvel. And he did. Roy Thomas bought the story for Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction. I don't remember what issue it was, but obviously if you're at a comic book convention and somebody's showing you a story, you can't read the story because you have to engage with him and be conversing. But he was obviously looking at it from a professional editor's standpoint and going, the storytelling's good, the inking's good. I mean, he's not Neil Adams. He's trying to be Neil Adams, but if he's not Neil Adams himself, he could be one of the crusty bunkers. And if the story is as good as the art, or even half as good as the art, for the page rate that I've got budgeted for Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, and the fact that it's a 6-pager, I can fit it into any issue. What the heck? Let me take this with me, and I'll get back to you about this. Because there was no scanning or anything at the time, so it's like bye-bye artwork. Hopefully Roy Thomas isn't going to lose it on the way back to New York. And obviously Roy Thomas got there and read the story and went, no, it's a good story. It's it's not Hemingway, it's not Tolstoy, but neither is Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction. We're just filling pages here, hopefully with quality science fiction, or SF. Where you had to be a purist about those kinds of things, and looked at the lettering and said, the lettering, no, we'll get Orzechowski or somebody like that to re-letter it. And that made a world of difference. When it came out in Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, that was another one of those testimonies to it's worth learning how to letter, and it's worth learning how to letter well, because it does raise the professional quality of any page at least 25% compared to something that's lettered amateurishly. So that led to the situation of Jim Whaley, who was doing Orb magazine at the time, going, shouldn't Marvel have said in Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, this is reprinted from Orb magazine number 3? And it's like, everybody's looking at him like, Jim, Orb magazine is Orb magazine. Marvel Comics is Marvel Comics. Get a grip. We're not saying that Orb is a fanzine, but we're definitely saying, there's double A ball and there's the major leagues. And if you don't know the difference, then you've got a serious perception problem. And of course, the other thing was that John Allison did a lot of different artwork. He liked, doing airbrushy stuff and, doing commission jobs. And, he did the Baca Comics storefront. He did the Silver Snail storefront. And if you're doing that, you're not doing comics. So it's like, however long it took him to do this one story, and I'm sure Roy Thomas said, "Hey, let us know if you come up with something else." And he went, "Sure will," and never did. Just disappeared into being the John Allison in Toronto commercial art. Uh, Postscript on that story, I was talking to Roy Thomas about this at the last Toronto Con I was at 2005, at the dinner with Will Eisner, just to drop a couple of names. And I was telling him, I was standing there watching you going through John Allison's pages, and my heart's pounding. I'm going, John's in, John's in. And Roy goes, "Yeah, I love the last panel, the ending on it where he goes, 'Nice view though.'" I went, "Yeah, there you go. If it's a good story and it's got a good ending, how many stories has Roy Thomas read, and how many stories did he read and publish in Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction when it was coming out?" And 40 years later, yeah, I love the last panel and I love the last word balloon. The other person that you're looking at here is Bill Payne. And Bill Payne was a draft dodger from the United States, who came north to escape the draft, and started working in commercial art and comics in Toronto, and was drop dead brilliant. I don't know when he started to becoming drop dead brilliant, but he was from the moment I became aware of him in Toronto. So he set the tone. Looking at him now, I'm going, there's a lot of Stan Drake in here that I didn't recognize at the time because I didn't know Stan Drake's work, but it's distinctively Bill Payne's. It's just, I'm a commercial illustrator. I know how to do illustration the way Stan Drake and Neil Adams are doing it. I do it differently because I'm Bill Payne, and why would I do Stan Drake? But I'm definitely always picking up ideas, and it's like that made my molars grind. It made all of our molars grind. That you're Bill Payne. You can draw comics like this at this level. Why aren't you at Marvel? Why aren't you going, I want to draw Batman? He did like one House of Mystery story in House of Mystery 206. And the legend goes that Carmen Infantino kept in his office for like 2.5 weeks to show people this is the kind of comics we want to do. This is exactly the level we're looking for the mystery books. And it is a gorgeous story called Sentimental Journey, if you ever want to look it up. And he was doing stuff for Orb, like was obviously, yeah, I really like comics. So Jim Whaley, yeah, I'll work on some stuff for you, but I'm living in Toronto. I got to make Toronto wages. I don't see myself getting rich off of this stuff. He did the Northern Light cover that Rowley scanned. That's the cover of Orb #3, and then he inked one of Vince Marchesano's jobs on Dark Ninja. I think he was called Dark Ninja. Anyway, and it's like all of a sudden you're looking at it and going, right, he's not solving Vince's problems, but he's putting so much Bill Payne on top of it. Who cares? It's and he lettered it, and it was professionally lettered. So it was just this jaw dropping, and suddenly everybody working for Orb, Jim Craig, Gene Day, me at the periphery, Vince Marchesano, Art Cooper, everybody's trying to become Bill Payne. He's become our Neil Adams. We all want to become, the Krusty Bunkers. And it's like Bill did his one story. Again, I don't have the story right here. The sort of Arab inflected story written by George Henderson. And I don't know how long it took Bill to do it. Not as long as it would take any of us. And it's a spectacular piece of work. It's still very, very professional. But this is what we were doing. We want to get up to this level, and we want to participate in the comic book field and make a living doing comics. And it's like, that's easier said than done. That Neil Adams with Continuity Associates, he made his money on commercial art. He wouldn't have been able to have half of a business floor in Manhattan just writing and drawing comics with all of his friends, which is what we were always picturing. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You've got to figure out how to make a living at it, and that's a matter of productivity. That's you have to be productive enough to get your chops up to the point where you can just sit down and do this and not have to second guess it. It's like he looks at Vince Marchesano's pencils and he goes, okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time fixing these, but there's stuff that I can do to just goose this up a bit. And I'm a commercial artist. I can do this. And I enjoy doing this. Bill Payne did a strip, I think, for the Toronto Telegram that was like Miracles of Science or something like that. There was a whole display at one of the Cosmicons of the original art from it. And the Telegram's been out of business, since the 1960s, 1970s. So I don't know if any of that even exists, even as tear sheets or anything else, or anyone has a collection of it. But Bill definitely had the chops to be a professional cartoonist, but I think found out what just about everybody finds out. This is not a good way to get rich. The Telegram probably syndicated it to a number of different places. They probably paid him, more than they wanted to, but compared to what he was paying in rent and groceries in Toronto, it's like, I'll do this for a while. If it doesn't pick up, I'm going to have to drop this and do something else. And I'm going to have to do commercial jobs in the meantime. One of the guys you might want to look up is B.P. Nicol. He's a Canadian poet, a famous Canadian poet in the 1960s, 1970s. He's dead now. But he was a huge, huge fan of comics and collected just about everything in the comic book field. His collection got dispersed, but most of it is still labeled as B.P. Nicol with stickers on the front of the plastic bag. So it's small b, small p, small Nicol, the poetic affectation. If anybody had everything that was being published at the fanzine level and at the comic book level, or the comic zine level, complete, it was B.P. Nicol. So I don't know if there's anything about him online or if there's anything about his collection online. I don't think there are very many people who are still alive and still even remotely interested in talking about any of this with you, because once you're getting into Toronto, everybody is in the same boat in terms of I got to make a living at this. I've got to be able to make Toronto level rent. Not happening. I'm out of here. Jim Craig, was I looked it up. He drew What If #1 for Marvel Comics. He got in. I looked it up in the Overstreet Guide. That was dated February 1977. So he took all of his learning from Orb magazine and working in various capacities in the comic field, and parlayed it into getting in at Marvel, where they're starting a new title called What If. What if I think the first one is What If Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four, and he produced it. Obviously, got paid for it. It was published, but I think what happened there was he wasn't timely enough. He wasn't turning the job around fast enough, which there's margin for error if you're doing the first issue of What If, but doing the first issue of What if you have the riffs, if you have the What If riffs down pat, and you can turn the job around in 2.5 weeks, pencils and inks or whatever it is that you're doing, then you're probably going to become the permanent What If artist. And I think that was Jim Craig's to lose, and I think he lost it because the editor goes, all right, I signed this back to him in April, and I've gotten a couple of sob stories about this and that, and the dog ate my homework and whatever else, and it's like, yeah, whatever. I'm giving jobs to people who turn the jobs around, and the pages actually come in when they say they're going to come in. And no offense, you're not in that category. Gene Day was in that category. It's like you give Gene something to do. You say, okay, we're going to try you out as an inker. Here's 20 pages of Marvel 2-in-1 or whatever it was, or Star Wars, and bada bing, bada boom. You need it in 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. Gene will have it done in 2 weeks, so it has a week to travel by mail and get to you. And it's like, okay, that worked okay, let's give him another job. Okay, that one came in, let's give him another job. That's why they ended up thinking there was like a legion of substitute Gene Days in Gananoque, Ontario, all working in this sweatshop because, Gene Day turned over inking jobs the way Wally Wood turned over inking jobs at his peak. It's like, don't worry about it. I got 5 guys here who all know how to do Wally Wood. It will be on your desk in 2.5 weeks. But that I think maybe you're going to get into problems with the underground. You'll have a more successful book and a more successful history if you avoid using the term underground, because that has a prejudicial context to it that particularly in a feminist-dominated age, which we're still in. You don't want to be trying to sell bookstores a book called Canadian Underground Comics, or trying to get positive reviews from the Globe and Mail and the Toronto Star, and get talked up, someplace besides just comic book stores. So I don't know what you would call it. You could maybe have zines, undergrounds, overgrounds, ground levels, the Canadian scene, 1960s, 1970s, and make 1960s, 1970s in giant type. So you snag all of the baby boomers who go, 1960s, that's my kind of stuff. Let me take a look at this. Gum, gum, gum. Uh, so there you go. That's as interesting and as accurate as I can be on that, in terms of over here, we were trying to get in at DC and Marvel. If you were in at DC and Marvel, you're a professional. If you're not working at DC and Marvel, you're an amateur or semi-pro. Um, that changed. I was one of the guys that changed that, where I started going, wait a minute, this isn't rocket science. You can, I've printed or helped Harry Kremer print Oktoberfest #1. It's not rocket science. It's still just printing. It costs this much to print. Uh, you can put this cover price on it. You give this much of a discount, and then it's just a matter of, okay, now you got to do that again next month, and then the month after that, and then the month after that, and then the month after that. Without fail, you will get the benefit of the doubt. You will have people going, okay, it's not the greatest comic book in the world, but it's actually coming out. It's 6 months later, and this is issue #3. This guy, this is completely unheard of. I forget how many years it took. It took Jim Whaley to publish 6 issues of Orb, but that's you got to have all of those things working together. You've got to be coming out regularly enough to build an audience, and you have to have the chops to get better, and you have to have some business sense, and you've got to be covering your nut. This is how much money I have to make, and if I don't make this much money, I'm going to get evicted from my apartment. All of those very realistic kind of things. So if you have more questions on on that, and as you say, formal questions in your submission this time, you know where to find us.
Okay, we are back, and again, it's interesting because I said all of that, trying to cover all of those bases as accurately as I could, which is the cartooning scene when I was first starting up. Well, I was first starting out trying to go from a fan to a professional. But what he's talking about is basically comics fanzines, which I wasn't interested in doing. I wasn't interested in being a fan artist. I was interested in going from being a fan artist to being a professional. But I think maybe in terms of what he's trying to find in Toronto, there was a library collection attached, as far as I know, to the Library of Toronto that was called the Spaced Out Library, which was more over in the direction of science fiction fanzines. And it was somebody, I forget who it was, that was a huge science fiction fan and collected every fanzine, science fiction fanzine done in the Toronto area, and a massive collection, and donated that to the Toronto Public Library System or the University of Toronto Library. It's one of those two. So you might want to try and find out through both of those entities. You have a collection called the Spaced Out Library that is science fiction fanzines, because that spilled over again. Like, he was trying to keep it confined to science fiction fanzines, and then started getting into comic zines. And of course, some science fiction fanzines were science fiction comics that people were doing as digests and mini comics. And he got to the point of, well, I don't want anything not getting included, so I'll include these. So that became a subset of that collection. So if you're going to, Robin's talking about being in Toronto at some point this year to try and research that. That's something that you might want to take a look at. I don't definitely in terms of collections. Toronto was far more a science fiction hub than it was a comics hub, which is why I think you may be coming up empty or close to empty on where is the 1970s comic scene in Toronto. You'll find it, I think, within the science fiction community, wherever that science fiction community is preserved. I'm sure we'll take another try at this as Robin goes down the same path of whoever it was. I'm trying to remember the woman's name. Meryl? I think it was Meryl, and she went down the same path. We want to include everything, and it's very, very, very difficult to do, if not completely impossible to do. But we live but to serve at Please Hold for Dave's Hymn, and we will try to be as cooperative as possible.